All right, good evening, Elements family. This is Coach Justin with Springfield, Oregon Elements Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're all having a good week. This is my last lesson for the week, basic gi Jiu-Jitsu. Today we're going to finish up some concepts and ideas about the guard. This today is kind of one of the ones that it works real well for competitors who maybe want to be a little trickier. These moves today are what I would consider more of like the fire element in terms of jiu-jitsu. And again, if you're watching my YouTube videos, hopefully you've begun to sort of make these connections in styles and stuff. So to just give you a heads up what that is, it's mostly about creating an attacking situation that your opponent escapes from and using that escape or that position to set up for your move. Okay, so let's get started. Hip position, a little lower. Go. Okay, all right. So today, like I said, we're going to finish up the guard. And the first thing we're going to work out of is the idea of the armbar from the bottom as a way to create an attack. Okay, so to give sort of a idea about for people who are not too familiar with the armbar with the gi, the armbar with the gi works best when you have control of the neck area and also control of the arm area. And you can have that control with a hook, or you could even use like a sleeve to help pull it over, because ultimately you're going to be pushing kind of with the opposite hand. All right. So for example, if I want to armbar this side, this hand is going to be grabbing the sleeve like this or pulling the arm across, and then this hand is going to be pushing like this. So there's a push-pull in here, right? And then with that, I'm going to be using my hip switch to rotate myself sideways to the arm, perpendicular to the body, and keeping this leg up so that when I'm ready, I can flip this leg over and armbar this guy, okay? Like this. And there are ways to practice this. This is actually a good drill just to get your hip movements going. So mostly you'll just sort of reach across and grab at behind the shoulder or elbow. So if I grab the elbow and I pull it over, and then I reach and I grab the gi up here, and then I'm going to pivot and turn, and then throw that leg over, and then I'm going to switch by, again, recentering, grabbing the arm, grabbing the head, pivoting to turn, and then swinging that leg over, like so. So if you have a partner, swinging back and forth like that is a good warm-up for your hips. It's just good to get your body flowing, because in jiu-jitsu, we're all on the ground, right? Mostly 90%, 95% of what we do is on the ground, and that's the game, that's the arena we like to play in, where we're on the ground. Okay, so what we can do is we can set these situations up to be ones where we turn them into sweeps. Okay, that's what I like to do in these scenarios, is turn attacks into sweeps, because your opponent is going to try to do things like they're going to try to post up with a foot. So like if I go for an armbar and they see it, they want to post up here, because then they can drive off of it and pull their arm out. That's a common defense to an armbar. So most guys will post this foot up and stop that and try to get ready to pull that arm out. And then you can switch to a pendulum sweep, right? So if I'm here, okay, and I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna go for this armbar. So I've and you can do again, and this is just a variation. You can totally just go for this move if you want to. So if I'm like, if I get my hand in here, right, or even more so, I use this sleeve and this collar control to pull this arm over to where I want it, and then holding the back of this arm, I'm going to grab this like this, and I'm going to start to push, okay? So I'm going to start to push this head away, and I'm going to pivot off, and I'm going to turn to the side, this, right? So now what can happen is my opponent posts this foot up because they're going to try to use that base to twist themselves out of this. So once that leg comes up, so again, let's pretend this leg stays up as it should. Bob's just a little uncooperative at times. Just keep it there. So my arm's here like this and here like this, blocking his face for the armbar. So maybe I don't feel as confident about the armbar. So then I'm going to switch this hand to the sleeve because I'm already there. So I was up here, right? Now I'm going to switch to here, and then all I'm going to do is reach under and grab here. Now we're in our pendulum sweep. So I kick that leg out, kick it over, and sweep them, okay? That's how we use an attack to help try to set up for a sweep, okay? And if they don't post that leg up, well, if you're doing this right, so you're here and you're grabbing this lapel or grabbing this arm, you're grabbing this lapel here like this, and then you get that leg over, it shouldn't be too hard to finish. You just keep this hand inside and you're going to extend your hips up like that, right? So that's going to be your basic arm bar to your pendulum sweep. You could also even use this position for your flower sweep, right? So maybe instead of putting the foot up, which is a common response, they decide they're actually going to block their hands together, right? This happens a lot. Like if someone's going to armbar this arm, to defend the extension of this arm, this hand comes in to defend like this. So if you try to extend this arm, you won't be able to extend that arm because I've got this hand in place. So imagine again, this is the bar that's getting armbarred. This hand comes in and comes underneath. Now I can't straighten that arm out. All right, but they didn't post. They didn't post this leg. So instead of trying to go from here to underneath, I'm going to go from here to make the same switch, except now I'm going to grab the pants and I'm going to keep the arm with the same side, and then I'm just going to lift it up. I'm going to do a flower sweep, right? So I can use this arm bar as a way to sweep somebody in two different ways, okay? And it's up to you to figure out which way works best for you. Now, the goal of this curriculum that I have is to identify two styles of jiu-jitsu that are going to work best for you, right? And if you're more aggressive and you're shooting for these arm bars because you got good hips, and you got strong legs, and you're very athletic, then the fire style is definitely yours. If you want to be a competitor, fire is where it's at. Most competitors use this. They're finding an attack all the time. Most really good competitors. I will say there are lots of boring competitors that find a place and just sort of sit on it. They're very basic, and because jiu-jitsu competitions are a lot of times about points. So if I score a point or even sometimes an advantage, so like I think they give advantages for like if I attempt to pass the guard and I make it, but I don't secure the guard pass, I get back to guard, I get an advantage. Now, if I can make it look like I'm trying to pass the guard the rest of the match, and I don't, then I win because I have an advantage. I think advantages are ridiculous, but they have them, and that's usually a tiebreaker. If like I have a point, you have a point, but you have an advantage, or I have 2 points, you have 2 points, but you have an advantage. Those are tiebreakers. So that's the kind of jiu-jitsu you want to play and practice at. That's experience. That's great. All right. But the highest level competitors, you look at like ADCC or Nogi Worlds, things like that. Those guys go for the submissions. They are the submission hunters. They are the ones that are trying to finish their opponent. And so this is a good stepping stone in that direction. Okay. So again, to start the armbar, you're going to pick your cross collar side and your sleeve, and set up your sleeve first. So if I want to armbar this side, which is usually the side most people armbar. Most people learn the armbar to the right. So to start, that's always a good place to go. So I'm going to grab this sleeve here, just like I would any other sleeve. And I wish his arms were longer so it'd fill the sleeve out, but what are you going to do? There we go. So I'm here, I grab the sleeve, and I take this arm, grab across, I pull it in place. Now once it's here, I hold, and I'm going to reach for the gi, for this lapel, and I'm going to turn so that I'm perpendicular to the body. All right, so now all I should have to do from here is push the face away, or I could even turn my hand away to push on the face like this, because I've got real good secure grip on the arm here from the jacket, and finish the armbar. So then I'm here, right? And they defend the 2 ways that I just talked about, put the foot up or whatever, and I go for my sweep. Now, just because they put the foot up doesn't mean you don't have to flower sweep. Okay, a flower sweep can be utilized from a post up as it can be from a not post up. It's just easier to switch to get the leg up off the ground if it's already here than if they post. And you always have to be ready for them to post once you grab their gi top. So once, or their pants. So you go to grab their pants like this, and then they post up. So now, okay, you're gonna post up. Now see, I don't have that same kind of leverage as I did because I want to punch. So then I could just switch to the end of the leg and then finish with our pendulum sweep versus our flower sweep, or versus our flower sweep, like that. Okay, so practice the armbar a few times. Like I said, the swivel armbar, but always be aware of your hand positioning, because a lot of times you'll practice. There's a lot of practice in warming up where you swivel from one side to the other. But the main and maybe the main part in that is just moving your body. But if you're gonna put the armbar in, it would be better, in my opinion, for all parties if you actually did it right. So even if you started from like a double sleeve position and you go, okay, I'm gonna go off of this one, right? So when you swivel, I forgot this little detail about armbar. When you swivel, try to get your foot on their hip like this, so you can push off their hip, and that'll help rotate you around. If you put your foot down here and you don't have this arm tight, they could possibly push this leg down and maybe get the elbow back that way. So just pay attention to that. Put your foot on the hip and keep the Suzanne Summers in tight here when you go to spin, and make sure this clamps as well. So you're clamped here like this, ready to finish, ready to get that leg over. Okay. Okay. So that is our armbar. Now, the second position I want to show you is off of a different attack. Okay. So we're gonna do a hip bump sweep. This is what we did yesterday. And off the hip bump sweep, we got the Kimura. And the Kimura defense is usually to tuck that arm down inside the pants. So we talked about that. So I'll show the setup again. So your opponent, I don't know, maybe they put their hands here, okay, because they're sitting up. You can't really do a good hip bump sweep without your opponent sitting up, okay? And you didn't get their, you don't have their lapel. If you had their lapel, you could kind of force a hip bump sweep, but let's just assume you don't have their lapel. So I'm going to push on their hips with my hamstring so I can bridge up. And since I can't do that on Bob, I'm just going to put my feet down. So I'm going to put my feet up and see how it turns from a flat table to more of a slide. So from here, I'm going to use that to undo this. And then once that's undone, I could sit up right to a Kimura. I don't have to do a hip bump sweep because my hand comes right down. Now, if it doesn't come down, right, if it doesn't end up right here, and I just end up posting on my hand like this, I can fake like I'm going to hip bump. And then when I come back down, I can push on the head here, twist, and come to my Kimura. Right? Now, when I'm in my Kimura, like I said, a lot of guys, they'll put this hand inside here. Right? And that's fine. They keep their hand inside their inside and go into their pants, kind of like that. That's fine. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the Omoplata. So I was here. What I'm going to do is this hand right here, instead of trying to fight, it's actually going to push that hand in. Then I'm going to push this head down, and I'm going to push off of here, and I'm going to rotate. I'm going to push off, and I'm going to rotate myself out to an Omoplata. Okay, just like that. Now, how they end up is not going to be necessarily how Bob is. Bob's flat on his stomach, probably going to be up on all fours when you get to this position. So remember, just like before, keep this over his head, over his legs. Now, I'm not going to, in this particular instance, I'm not actually going to advocate that you finish the Omoplata with the sit-up, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to let him go for a somersault, all right? You don't want him to cartwheel over you. So this hand's still protecting against the somersault. So the somersault would be if he tried to get his legs over you, right? So you're just trying to protect that. But when he goes to try to what do I just call it? Not somersault. Flip. When he goes to try to flip. He goes to try to flip over you that way. So he's going to try to flip over his head. What you're going to do is you're actually going to sit up with him and let him flip. And when he flips, he's going to end up on his back, and then you're going to end up on top of him in side control. Okay. I really wish I had a working situation so I could. So again, anybody wants to come help me out. But essentially, with this arm inside, they're going to come up to sort of tripod, right, to flip over. And as long as you sit up with them and guide the flip, they're going to end up kind of like this, and they're flipping over. See? And as they flip over, you come up with them, and now you end up in side control. Okay? So if Omoplata isn't your thing, right? Not necessarily finishing Omoplata, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of things that can be done against an Omoplata. But allowing your opponent to flip can put you in side control. So now not only have I basically swept my opponent, by changing positions, but now I'm in side control. So for me, that's 2 points for the sweep, plus 3 points for, or is it 2 points? 2 points for side control? 2 or 3 points. So now you're ahead in points in this scenario, and you got to control side control for 3 seconds, I think it is. So what's the benefits here? Well, if you're, like I said, the Omoplata position in my study is actually an intermediate position, right? If you study the Omoplata and that is like the position that you want to be really good at, the problem with doing that when you're just starting is you're going to take focus away from the general jiu-jitsu and focus on one aspect of jiu-jitsu. And in a sense, in one way that's a really good thing. If you want to be like, how do I get to Omoplata? Okay, that's great. You're going to be really offensive. But when you're also study offense too much and not enough defense, then when somebody gets past that position, you don't have as good an answer for them as if you had studied all the positions first and make sure you were well-rounded and attack submissions that didn't necessarily potentially put you in a bad position. So I would say, from my experience, until you have at least 2 stripes on your belts, until you've been doing jiu-jitsu for maybe a year, 6 months to a year, depending on your level of ability, or maybe if you're a wrestler, I would use the Omoplata as a sweep and not necessarily as a submission. Now, if your opponent doesn't know anything about it and you just can fall right into it, sure, 100%, go for it. But when you're doing competitions, people know about the Omoplata. People should know about how to deal with it. And sometimes when you're working against somebody really big and they can power through, like I showed you that shrug thing yesterday, it's probably not the best idea to try to Omoplata them. It's probably best just to keep the pressure on their shoulders so that they have to roll forward and finish that way. So one more time, just to show this. This again, like I said, it's a really it's using an attack to help further your jiu-jitsu. And again, it's a matter of, I would say it's a matter of using it as when you're beginning. Let me preface this, to use it as a way to sweep your opponent versus as a way to beat your opponent, because there are much safer ways in terms of giving up your position than trying to finish an Omoplata. Okay. But again, don't want to discourage anybody from trying things. I just, when you're talking about what your goal is, what you're building, you can build a really high peak, but the climb there could be steep. But once you get there, you're on top of the world. Or you can build a nice hill and have a few places you're really good at, but have a general control of every position, or at least a beginner's level of control of every position. So that's what I'm trying to afford the majority of people here. Okay. So if you feel special, you take the road you want to take. But one more time. So again, I'm here. He's postured. All right. I'm full guard. He's trying to break open the guard. So he's like a little closer. So he goes here to posture up. So I put my feet down, lift myself up, boom, come up for the Kimura, right? I sit back for the Kimura. He ends up here. He puts his leg inside, or his hand inside. So I push the hand down. I push the head away like this. I rotate myself around until I get my foot, my legs out, and my head on the other side. Boom, I'm here. Now, maybe even as I was doing that, he foresees that I'm not going to make it here in time, or has already gone, oh, he's going to Omoplata me. So he goes to his feet because he wants to flip over and try to scramble. So as he starts to go to his feet, I block his feet, right? And I'm going to sit up as he does. Okay, so I'm blocking his feet. He sits, he's tripod up. Okay, then he starts to flip over. His arm's still inside. My omoplata here, like this. He flips over. That's when I switch my feet so that when he comes over like this, I'm already coming up on top into side control. Okay? So again, you know, your jiu-jitsu journey is your own. I'm just hoping that if you felt like I did in my journey, where I sort of felt like I had to figure it out on my own, I want to try to create a guide for you guys with this. And so both of those operate off of setup for an attack. And the Kimura, great attack from the guard. So go for it. And the thing about it is that if you go for that Kimura and they don't defend, you're going to finish the Kimura. If you go for that armbar and they don't defend, you're going to finish that armbar. But if you go for that armbar or you go for that Kimura and they do defend, this is an answer to that defense. That's what the fire style is all about. It's about being aggressive, not just trying to deep attack and then move on to the and then go, oh, they defended, and give up, right? Because there's two ways you can look at a defended attack. You can either look at a defended attack as I just have to rewind and start over, or you can look at it like, how can I maybe use that to do another attack, right? And that's what our fire guys can do, or another, or rather further my game, not necessarily another attack, but further my game. So if I go for the armbar and I miss, I can sweep him. If I go for the Kimura, I can omoplata and then potentially sweep them. So there's two parts there that like it's kind of chaining moves together, which is something you should be starting to do maybe late white belt, starting to get used to defenses, some sweeps, and then start to see how your moves fit together with other moves. But that's where I would be with that. Okay. All right. So the last thing I want to do, since we've gone over the sweeps, is I want to talk about some unorthodox chokes. So this week we have gone over the Kimura, the armbar, the omoplata, the cross collar choke, traditional variation, and now I want to go over a couple of cross collar chokes using alternative methods. Okay, because there are a total of three. I would say a total of 3 styles of cross collar chokes. Okay, there is well, maybe there's 4. Let's find out. These other ones don't come very often, but when they do, it can be really useful to know that they're there. All right, so just scoot down a little bit, make sure everything's good. Shot. Okay. So to talk about the first cross collar choke, remember it's hand inside, grab the collar. We're going to pivot and push away. And this hand comes inside, grab the other collar like so. And then we're going to re-square up, and we're going to turn our thumbs in, pull our elbows down, and pull. Okay, so it's now in this case, fingers inside, all right? So that's a finger, those are fingers inside, all right? Now, one variation that you can do if you get a situation where your opponent decides that instead of being up, they want to try to control your arms with their head down. So where their head is determines how we're going to do this. So if your opponent's head is slightly to the right, you're going to use your thumb inside across the back of the collar like this on the left. So see how the head's to the right. I'm going to use this, not this arm, not the same side the head's on, the opposite side the head's on. So then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this here, and then I'm going to push their head over and get this arm to this side. This, now my thumb's inside on this side. And I'm going to reach through like so, grabbing that lapel. And instead of trying to pull or push with both, I'm actually going to pull with one and push with the other. So I'm going to pull with this hand, because that'll tighten that up. And then I'm going to push with the other one, cinching everything in. So I'm sort of pulling, but it's also like I'm trying to pop their head off, right? So in this case, this hand's inside like this, the fingers inside. In this case, this thumb's here like this, keeping that tight, and I'm going to push and pull, right? So I'm still going to hold this, but I'm also going to kind of push with my hand. So I'm kind of pushing and like holding, push, and then I pull with this one to finish that choke. Okay, that's a thumb inside and thumb and fingers inside. But I can do both thumb inside. All right. So in that case, it's kind of the same thing. You instead of going and I will also say that can be what we call a bacon. So this is the story, of course, is that old gis of old, kind of like this one used to have. Doesn't quite have it, but I actually have a couple like this that have patches that go along from the neck to the shoulder, and they make a nice little handle for people and they kind of look like strips of bacon. So calling it grabbing the bacon. So when I do this move here, when I grab here and I push and come across to get this head inside, if for some reason I can't grab the hand inside like this, like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just harder, it's just difficult, I can grab the bacon, as they say, and then do kind of the same thing. I'm actually going to pull and push again this way. And that might even be a little bit tighter because there might be less slack, because instead of using the collar completely, I'm actually pulling the collar this way using the shoulder. I know that like I have that people have difficulty choking me because of my small neck. So if there's a way for them to use my bacon to sort of pull this in, that can actually start to cut into the small space that I have instead of trying to get their arm inside, because I can duck this down. So if you try to get your arm inside, it might be more difficult than just trying to grab the bacon and pulling the bacon through like that, which is definitely, I can feel that's better. So versus like trying to get my fingers inside or even my thumb inside like this and trying to get the wrist across. If I keep the elbow down, that's gonna be hard. But if I reach and grab my bacon like this, and I come down here like this, I'm sort of like wedging this underneath without my hand inside of it. It's this really nice, it's this really nice thing, because my arm doesn't have to go up underneath my neck. It just has to go a little under my chin. Even if I push down, there's still going to be space here for someone's big arm to get underneath my chin if they grab bacon. So I'm here and I'm here, or I could maybe choke myself there. You would pass out and let go before you die, so no worries there. But you can also go, you can also there are ways that it behooves you to go thumb in sometimes, or like I said, grabbing the bacon. So these are all alternate versions of the choke. And when you do the choke from the bottom, right, which is another thing that you could do. So let's say I grab this arm right here, and to defend, he actually comes down on top of my arm, right? Like he's just hugging me down like this. Well, that's one of those situations when I can do my other choke, which is, I can reach over here with my elbow, grab to pull this head in to get his head up and grab the bacon, and then I can still pull. But see, in that situation, it's almost like a thumb in as well, except for in this case, I'm bacon. So there are lots of variations of the collar choke that you could become very familiar with if you wanted to, and could be very useful. Now, all of these variations kind of have the same defense, right? So if I'm here like this and I grab the back of your collar, you should immediately go, oh, he just grabbed the back of my collar, and sit up. Because once you've sat up here, I can't get this arm over, right? So now this is nothing. I have to actually hold your head down if I want to do this right, because I'm here and I'm here, right? So I grab here and I grab here. They don't hold your head down. If they just, lightly like try to pull you down, and then you grab here, just sit up, right? That's number one. If the arm does get over here, right, you should still be trying to sit up, but instead and defending this hand. So if I'm trying to get this hand inside, that hand should be shaking this hand, right? Because that's how you shake hands. Shake hands across, right? So if I can get this hand inside to defend against this attack here, I can shake that hand. And then while I'm doing that, if I can get my arm back over, my head back over. So if I'm here, right, and I'm here, then and I stand up, this arm immediately extends, so I can push this arm and try to get that head back over and then sit back up. So it's a matter of recognizing the space that you need to move in and adjusting your head accordingly, right? And even sometimes when somebody has me here, I do this kind of weird thing sometimes because of the way my gi fits, and I actually retreat like a turtle into my gi and get to like here. This is another good way to deal with that as well. So that way you kind of take the weapon away. So if I'm here like this, and then you have the ability to kind of turtle yourself into your gi, my arm's no longer relevant, and you can just slip it back. You don't have to. So sometimes you don't have to worry about this maneuver so much. Sometimes you can get here and then turtle yourself backwards and then poke your head back through. Like that's another thing you can do. It can depend on your gi. If your gi is too tight, sometimes that doesn't work. And I don't really know all the requirements for the tournament stuff, so that might not be necessarily a viable way. But I know that the gi that fits me, this one, gives me that room, so I can sort of back out a little bit because they're holding on here, right? So if they're holding on here and trying to keep you down, or even trying to extend you, you just keep extending back and then forward, right? Pretty easy. And those little things you'll figure out also along the way what defenses work best for you in those situations. But those are all ways that you can finish your opponent. So know that they exist. Okay, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you took something away. And as always, if you have any questions, you can shoot me a DM, Turcot, T-U-R, or you can check out the YouTube channel and you can comment there and hopefully I'll get it. But I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you next Monday.